Hey, hi, Andrew. Hi, how you doing? Hi, good morning, everybody. Good morning, because I'm in Italy right now. I'm Simone Marchesi. I teach Dante at Princeton University. And as I say, I'm reporting from Italy, from a tiny little town called Cecina, where I've just finished my quarantine after having traveled from the US. Summering in Italy is a good habit of my family. So I'm here today with.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Hui, and I'm reporting from Singapore, which Dante did not know of because Singapore did not exist in the Middle Ages. But anyways, here we are. I teach at Yale and US College, and Simone Marchesi was my teacher at Princeton many years ago, where he taught me Dante, Petrarch, Boccaccio, and a lot about how to read and how to live. So today we're going to learn how to read Paradiso 24. What is Paradiso 24 about, Simone?
Yes, Paradiso 24 is a canto that contains the first of three examinations that Dante undergoes. We have reached a point in the poem, in the narrative of the poem, in which Dante has crossed into the eighth sphere, the heaven of the fixed stars, and he has just witnessed the triumph of the church. So everybody who's in heaven has descended towards Dante, manifested themselves to him. Then the host has gone back up and back to the Empyrean, and a rear guard of three, and then we'll eventually see four souls has been left behind. And the three souls are apostles who will test, who will interrogate, who will examine Dante on three distinct and precise points, the definitions of the three theological virtues: faith, hope, and charity. And we are about to, in Canto 24, we are about to have Dante embark on the first of these examinations, the one on faith, administered
Right.
by none else than Peter, the Saint Peter.
Yeah, the great Saint Peter. What interests me about this canto is this very intriguing simile. And since we're both in the teaching profession, it's very appropriate for us. I'll read the English translation and then you read the Italian, Simone, okay?
Okay.
And the translation I'm reading is from another Princeton person who's Robert and Jean Hollander. And this is how Mr. and Mrs. Hollander render it. Just as the bachelor arms himself and does not speak while the master is setting forth the question for discussion, not for final disposition, so I armed myself with all my arguments while she was speaking, readying myself for such an examiner and such professing. Speak up, good Christian, and make your declaration. What is faith? At that I lifted my brow to the light from which this breathed, and then I faced Beatrice, and so forth.
Yeah. So here's the Italian. Sì come il bachelier s'arma e non parla, finché il maestro la quistion propone, per approvarla non per terminarla, così m'armava io d'ogni ragione, mentre che ella dicea, per esser presto a tal querente ed a tal professione. Di, buon cristiano, fatti manifesto, fede che è, ond'io levai la fronte in quella luce onde spirava questo.
So, as we all know, similes are very important in the epic tradition, and especially for Dante. And many times we can use the simile as a point of departure in which it will exfoliate some of the central meanings of not only the canto, but the some of the central themes and problems of the poem. For me, I find this very interesting because here Dante is, he's writing the Paradiso, he is an old man,
Yeah.
and he's reflecting and he's projecting himself or projecting himself back to the life of a student. But the funny thing is that he was never a bachelor himself, right? He did not go to the university in Florence, nor did he go to the famous university in Bologna, even though he had a period of stay there and he lectured there, right? So my question is, why does Dante compare himself to a bachelor getting ready for an examination, and not examination of just any old professor, but St. Peter himself? And so this, for me, is a moment which I call the universe at the end of the universe, right? We're almost about to escape the circumscribed dimensions of the material world. And here Dante is thinking deeply about this academic institution. What are your thoughts on this, Simone?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I find your your definition, the university at the end of the universe, a compelling and fascinating one. And in times of social, rarefaction of interpersonal distancing,
Yeah.
distance learning, I mean, Dante is zooming in Peter for an examination,
Yeah,
and
it's not only geographical, but his transhistorical, right?
it's
Through the
also
aeon.
transhistorical. Yeah. So that the two time and space, the two coordinates are actually
So there's something
both stretched.
there's something deeply anachronistic about the scene, because scholastic terminology and disputations obviously did not exist in the first century AD.
No, absolutely not. And Dante is very technical in the language that he mobilizes throughout the canto. I mean, it's not just the bachelier and
Yeah, shall we
maestro
point
here.
out some of
Yeah,
these
please do.
for
Please
our
do.
audience? So I see in line 66 quidditate, quiddity, which is a very scholastic term. And in the next tercet, we have sustanze, argumenti, and following there's a repetition of sustanze, and then there's syllogizzare, right, syllogism, which is very Aristotelian. Then there's evidence, argumento, and then doctrina, and then finally in line 81, ingegno di sophista,
Yes.
the sometimes the wit of sophistry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So yeah,
I'm
he's
fascinated
very
by
technical.
how, right, he's peppering this his answers through these terminologies that any university student would have learned. But what's interesting is that the question that Peter asked him is very simple.
Yeah.
And it's something that you don't need to go to university to learn the answer, right? Any village priest can tell you the answer to, right? This is basic Catholicism 101, right?
Yeah,
Now,
indeed.
if we put our historian's hat on and we look at some examples of disputations in the university, they are pretty complex and metaphysical and technical questions, right? And I dug up some, and we can share some with the audience. So here's one, right? So the souls in purgatory, when a new soul arrives, how do they know whether it's a man or woman, right? So free will, is the free will influenced by celestial bodies, by the stars, right? So this is about predestination, right? Or here's another one, right? Whether knowledge of literature or humanities or the goodness of the intellect can lead to the sanctity of the soul, right? So these are hardcore philosophical questions that you can answer a sic or non, yes or no, and then by which you would have this machinery of argument, which you would say, okay, these people say no, but then these people say yes, and here's my response, and here's my argument, and you argue based on evidence found in scripture or authority, right? These teachers say this. Peter of Lombard says this. Saint Dominic says this. Thomas Aquinas says this, right? Here, he is just quoting from scripture. So my question is, why is there this complex apparatus of scholastic terminology to answer such a simple question?
Yeah, I see two things at work at the same time. While you were reading the the questiones that were posed and resolved and determined historically, I could map them actually on Dante's own poem. I mean, these are topics that
absolutely.
are, somewhere discussed along the way. So Dante's poem has a philosophical and scholastic undercurrent
Right.
that surfaces at some specific points, but really only here the formalities of the disputation, the formalities of an examination are being summoned and are being thematized. So that there might be something specific going on here. Now, I don't want to resolve the tonality of the passage and determine whether Dante is here expressing or manifesting his own achievements as a lay philosopher, as someone who hasn't received the training, doesn't have an Ivy League.
That's right. He does have a laurea. Right.
No, he doesn't have a laurea, not even the laurel crown. He won't get the laurel crown, though he's evoking one most likely in the next canto.
So in other words, what you're saying is that, do we take this as maybe a wistful nostalgia that he never went to university, or is this maybe his arrogance in saying, hey, I don't need to have followed this scholastic program at Bologna. I can just do this myself through my own being an autodidact.
Right. It could be really, both. It could be a tinge of, regret about how life went, and one of the usual, common moments in Dante in which he takes pride in what he is and what he's able to become. But I don't want to, resolve this potential ambiguity, tonal ambiguity. Determining the tonality of a passage is one of the most difficult tasks ever. I like to sort of offer some notes on another vein of language that is still permeating this canto.
Perfect.
Really, in Dante's own setting up of the situation as pretty scholastic, as you rightly pointed out, I see some moments of terminological, I wouldn't say resistance, but at least divergency. I mean, it's very important, I think, that Dante mobilizes terms in his answer, in the questioning and in his answer, that are not completely scholastic, or they're used not in a scholastic sense. I mean, the way in which Peter addresses him, di buon cristiano fatti manifesto, so good, you good Christian, manifest yourself. In the profession of definition of faith that follows, Dante insists, saying that he wishes that his concepts are well expressed. So, faccio I miei concetti bene espressi. And in his answer, he treats it as a confession, as a confessione. So confessione.
It seems like what's happening. So maybe what you're suggesting is that Dante is intermixing this more Augustinian mode of the self-confessional, right? This inward movement of self-examination, in contrast to the scholastic, which in a way is trans-individual, right? It's really not probing into the history of the self or the palaces of memory, but through the intellect.
That's correct. I think that Dante is counterpointing. Let's put it this way. It is counterpointing the formalities and the proceedings of a scholastic, scientific, let's put it this way, methodology, with a just as essential for him use of language as a form of manifesting not just concepts, not just ideas,
Right.
but one's own essence. So in defining faith, Dante is not just reciting an article or a definition, an article of faith or a definition. He is professing it. So he's manifesting in the sense of professing it. And there is, if you look at Dante's own evolution in terms of semantics, the words that he has just used here in Paradiso come with a loaded history. When Dante defines
Absolutely.
language,
Yes.
both in Convivio and in De Vulgari Eloquentia, he says
Right.
that
And I mean,
language...
two cantos later, he's going to think about the origins of language with Adam, right? And it's a
Absolutely.
completely different answer than what he gave in De Vulgari Eloquentia, right? So,
yes, and
Simone,
we're
just scratching the surface of this poem, but I think hopefully this will give our audience a foretaste of its depths. And I guess, we both agreed to talk about this because, again, we're in the days of distant learning, right? Yeah. I'm in Singapore, you are in Italy. There's a global pandemic. There was global pandemic in Dante's age, right? So what lesson do you think we can draw from about intimate learning, distant learning, remote learning at the physical boundaries of the universe?
Right. Well, one, that connection, whatever it is that establishes it, whether it's a computer and the internet, whether it's converging in the same room and breathing the same air when this is possible, it is what really matters. All languages desire to bridge the distance between human beings. All languages are designed to do that, not just to encode and decode ideas, but to connect human beings. And so that's the first one, I think. Whether they are spoken or written, and there's a lot of orality and scripture questions that are being broached.
That's at the heart of this disputation, right? Because it's an oral performance that's based on the authorities of text, whether it's text by reason or text by revelation.
Yeah. So that is one essential thing. And there is a third way. Dante is intimating that there is a third way of communication that is actually beginning to transpire in these cantos. Dante avails himself of a new term for speaking to describe, to account for the way that these souls speak. And the word is spirare. To inspire, to transpire, and to breathe. So the breath as a form of communication, not just of a virus, but also of a human contact, I think is something we are called about to reflect in these days.
Yeah, it reminds me of the earlier simile about Marcius, right? In tras humanare, right?
Yeah.
And
Dante asks to be repleted with the spirit, with the inspiration. Yeah.
What's interesting for me is that in Paradiso, he's obviously thinking about institutions a lot, the institutions of the church, institutions of the government. Here, he's thinking about an academic institution. And one of the insights that Jacques Le Goff makes is that the university signals the birth of the intellectual, right? Dante was always kind of anti-establishment, right? He is an intellectual with a school of his own, right? He is his own professor with no students, right?
That too.
And so he, in a way, is a lone wolf and an autodidact. And so I think this conversation with you has made me think again. Dante's quest for pedagogy and his philosophy of education.
Yes. Let me offer you a final thought on my side. I'm fond of saying that coming from Italy, I was trained and trained to train other people by people who were training me to become them. So, which was wonderful. I mean, it was
right. It's
I
a
was
magisterium, right?
exactly,
It's
exactly.
the
Coming to
magisterium
the
of the
US and coming to
master and the disciple.
yeah, and the
Transmission.
master tries to reproduce themselves in the disciples. Now, coming to the U.S. and teaching, learning and teaching at Princeton made me change my mind. I think that now my task is not to turn you into me, and I think I have succeeded into that. Beyond the fact that we're wearing the same
That's right.
polo shirt. I don't think I have
The
turned
secret
you
handshake.
into me, but in trying to help students become what they already are. And this is also what I think Dante is doing as a teacher. He's a liberating teacher, which means that he gives us the responsibility of our own formation and our own approach and hand-to-hand combat with the text.
Right.
But I think it's a valuable way of thinking about the transmission of knowledge and the search for knowledge, which is always personal.
That's great. So in the spirit of following teachers and departing from teachers, let me offer a really interesting cross-cultural citation to end our recording. This is just kind of random, but I was just reading it, and of all things, I was responding to a colleague's post, and I quoted something from this is called is a very interesting title. It's called "The Mustard Seed Garden Manual of Painting," which is a painting manual in classical China from the 18th century, and it's basically teaching students how to paint. And one of the rules it suggests is, first, you must learn to observe the rules faithfully. Afterwards, modify them according to your intelligence and capacity. The end of all method is to seem to have no method. So this is a beautiful moment of Chinese sprezzatura, right? The end of all method is to seem to have no method. So shall we end it at this, Simone?
Absolutely. Thank you so very much
Great.
for the conversation, Andrew.
Ciao. Vale.
Vale.
Thank you.